Been getting some comments from producers who want to know how I mix my beats. I'm not going to sit here and ask why. I'm not going to question your sanity. I'm not going to go on a tirade about how I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to mixing anything, let alone my own beats. I'm just going to put on my headphones and mix a beat. I'm sitting here using the worst DAW known to man. Seriously, I can't stand this thing. It's getting worse every day. I didn't know a program could degrade over time, and it can. It's like, I hope this isn't offensive, it's like this DAW has Alzheimer's. It's a degenerative disease that just makes this program get less functional over time. Here's a moment of vulnerability. I'm afraid to learn a new DAW, man. I've been using this for so long, but I want to learn Ableton, and I keep saying that, and I just haven't done it, so whatever, let me mix this damn beat. I guess I would call this beat kind of simple. It's only 10 tracks. I like to keep things simple. I used to make, 40 track beats, and then it was such a pain in the ass to bounce. But I will show you that I am indeed clipping on this beat. This is not mixed by any means. So I'm using a Darrell Banks loop here. Of course, I have to play some keys over it, just so that I don't get accused of being, one of those fake ass producers who uses loops. But wait, I'm already a fake ass producer who uses loops because the main part of this is a loop. So I will never be as cool as those producers with 2 uploads on their YouTube channel from 10 years ago and 5 subscribers. They're the real producers. I have all the elements here. So this loop from Darrell has bass in it. So I'm going to subtractive EQ that bass out. Not necessarily all of it. Ooh, I was on bypass. I was wondering why nothing was happening. There we go. My struggle with beat mixing, period, aside from beat mixing, is figuring out the balance between the drums and the instrumental parts. I mean, I will mix a beat and I feel like the instruments are just too intense. Just to be safe, I'm going to turn this down because why not? And then I want my added keys to blend in well enough with that loop, which it probably doesn't now because they're probably loud. Yeah, see? And you know what? I'm gonna EQ these keys as well. Them a little left. You can barely hear that pan. I have an ARP kind of thing. Way too loud. I'm turning that down. I want that really subtle. To me, these are the instrumental parts. If I mute these, granted, bass is an instrument, but I am trying to mix my bass to my kick drum, so I separate those parts. The way I lay out my session is like percussion at the bottom, instruments at the top. I'm not saying you have to do this. This is because I have OCD. And then higher frequency sounds higher than the low. Like the snare is higher up in the session than the kick. So I'm clipping a lot. Speaking of clipping, I want that kick to clip. So I'm going to make it clip, and then I'm going to send it to a soft clipper. But I'm also going to send this open hat to a soft clipper, so when the kick hits at the same time as the open hat, I don't know what to do with bass half the time. A good starting point for me, I'm not saying a good starting point in general. I definitely have imposter syndrome when it comes to mixing. Good starting point for me is something mono, L2 mono. I just like having L2 on the bass. Also, CLA bass. I want the mono to come in after CLA to make sure that the bass track is mono. I feel like when I mess with the threshold and the ceiling on the L2, I just get better pressure on that bass. I don't really want it clipping here. Jeez. That hi-hat seems crunchy, and once I add some kind of exciter to the drums, the high frequencies are really going to stand out, and so I'm going to turn the hi-hats down. And already, look at the master fader. I'm more just mixing by ear. I don't have a great number system or anything like that. Which is a shame because other producers like Darrell Banks have a number system and their mixes sound amazing. And they rely more on just, simple gain staging than plugins. So right now you can see my kick is hitting harder than my snare. Which is fine with me. That's fine. Though I do, maybe I want the snare cracking a little bit in the mix. Yeah, I don't want it that prominent. And I'm mixing in headphones right now. I'm going to switch to the monitors later. Honestly, here's another thing that I have to admit. I don't ever get a great sounding bass mix unless one, it's by accident, or two, I test it in the car. So the car mix in terms of the bass and kick, but mostly the bass, that's essential. The bass line is way too quiet or it's way too muddy and it's taking over other frequency spaces. So again, that's what happens when you mix by ear. Now the tables have turned. Now the snare is hitting more than the kick is. All my progress down the drain. Snare is still a little hot, bass is still a little hot for my liking. Oh, that thing. Wow, this is messing things up. So I have this little kick scratch sound. Is that really what's messing things up? Let's look at the mixer. Yeah, it is. Okay, let's send that to the soft clipper. Oh, that didn't do shit. I'm just gonna turn the snare down here. I don't like leaving things clipping. I know that I could just throw effects on my drum bus. Let's see how this fill sounds. It's a little loud and a little boomy, so. That's decent for me, at least in the headphones. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to send everything that is percussive, including the bass, just what I do, all to the same drum bus. Then I can mess with the dynamics of the drums. So what I'm gonna throw on this drum bus, Trans-X L2, this time stereo, because I've gain staged, I've panned a little bit. I like just exciting the higher frequencies here and then limiting them just a little bit. Now, if I wanted to really affect the dynamics of the drum track, I would add, there are a lot of glue compressors out there. One is called Glue Compressor. I don't have that. I don't know how much it costs. I think it's often on sale, but I like just throwing a really subtle glue compression on, if any, and I do that before the limiter. And for those of you who are confused about what the compression does, compression just narrows the dynamic range of whatever you're throwing it on. So it compresses, it squishes, it reduces the space between the quietest and the loudest elements of what you're compressing. So in this case is gluing the drums together by reducing how drastically loud or drastically quiet one element is versus another. The problem with that is a lot of people just over compress their drums thinking that it's going to make them louder. That's really not what it does. It just makes them sound kind of crazy. And if that's an aesthetic choice and it's intentional, then, you know, cool. That's your choice. But a lot of times it's not an aesthetic choice. It's an accident. So now that we have the drums going, they're all on one bus, and now I can just control their volume. It makes it easier because now I have all my drums here, and I just have to work on these final 3 tracks to get the mix sounding passable. And here's my problem again. I love the instruments. I just don't want them to overpower the mix, and I know they are. Of course they are, because it's a beat that I made. I like how that sounds, at least in the headphones. Let's see how it sounds not in the headphones. If you throw span on your master, it is a spectrum analyzer. I'm gonna bring in a track that I consider well mixed, and now I'm gonna compare them in span and see where my mix is lacking. So you can see what that looks like. Something's going on there. Okay, my low end is kind of on par. There just seems to be some mud here. See that space? So I could sit here and analyze this to death. And it's a way that you can drive yourself crazy. But it's also really helpful if, you know, you're brand new to mixing and you really want to get a deeper understanding of what's happening in your mix compared to what's happening in other mixes. Spectrum analyses are similar enough. They're not going to make me lose my mind. I'm going to show you one more thing too. If I really wanted to go crazy on this mix, let's say I just want it hitting louder and harder than it should. People are going to be upset with me about this. You could throw something like Trans-X and maybe even a soft clipper on the master and really make this loud. I mean, you'll hear a difference, especially if, so like here we are, nothing. Now I'm gonna add trans X, little clipper. Some people like that, some people don't. I think a lot of producers are just clipping the hell out of a lot of their tracks. Personally, I think a lot of it sounds pretty good, even if it's problematic to the engineer that's going to be recording. I try not to do that as much, but I do, you know, want my kick to be hitting hard in the mix. I want my bass to be audible. I want my high end to snap. Again, this is a mixing tutorial on how to mix like me, because I'm me and I know how I mix. Take it or leave it. Hopefully some of that was helpful. At least you can take my method and improve on it. And if you have suggestions for me to improve my own mixing, leave a comment, suggest some plugins. I'm always trying to improve my mixes. I'm just more focused on the beats than the engineering side of audio production. Appreciate you tuning in. Peace.